Hello, everyone. A very good morning to all the participants. I am Swati Agarwal, Assistant Professor in the Department of Journalism, School of Media and Communication, Adamas University. I welcome you all to yet another day of the 7-day Faculty Development Program on application of methodologies in media, communication, and entertainment research from 6th of March to 12th of March 2022, organized for the first time by the School of Media and Communication. The last 3 days have been truly enriching and added to our knowledge of research. Today is yet another day where we would delve into many more interesting topics and widen our horizon of knowledge. Today, the first session of the day will be conducted by Dr. Shiva Daveshar, a pioneer in the sphere of research, who would be sharing her knowledge about OTT platforms. Let me share some insights on OTT platforms to you. We can say that the last few years have been no less than a milestone which has brought a revolution of sorts in the world of audiovisual content. As soon as audiences turned their eyeballs to the over-the-top platforms, there has been an upsurge in the number of subscribers, leading to voluminous content production on these platforms. The OTT platforms seem to be promising and have a huge potential of expanding their businesses at the ground level. Though there are a plethora of reasons which have contributed towards the rapid growth of these OTT platforms, like affordable prices of the data, or we can say the internet subscription, and there has been a tremendous rise in the number of mobile users as well, as communication technologies and new media have expanded their wings and reached far and wide. And also, there has been a rise in the production of regional content. The increasing accessibility of the internet has caused over-the-top platforms to get numerous viewerships. The watching habits of the viewers have forced content makers to emphasize on the quality of content production. As they say, content is the king. If one has a good story to tell, one can engage the audience. So more emphasis is being laid on storytelling. So to talk about audience making through OTT platforms, we have with us today the esteemed guest, Dr. Shiba Daveshar, who is a faculty member of the Symbiosis School of Media and Communication. Dr. Shiva Daveshar has completed her doctorate from MICA. She has been earlier associated with the University of Southern Denmark as a research fellow with the Department of Communications. Also, she was a faculty member in Pearson Education, Kuwait, head of the department in Garden City University and Asian School of Business. She has chaired and convened international conferences and contributed to institution building. She is a silver medalist from Punjab University and has pursued her MBA in marketing and MA in mass communication. Dr. Shiva Daveshar has a work experience of 18 long years. Before coming to academics, she has worked at various positions in the media industry, including the Times of India, the Indian Express, and MYFMs. She is an active researcher and has contributed papers in the discipline of critical management studies, political economy of state policies, and the choices made by state in adopting certain technologies. And more recently, she has been working on gender discourse. Her field work is mostly ethnographic in nature and pertains to policy research, discourse, and narratives. As a part of her teaching experience, she has designed and taught courses such as qualitative research, gender studies, social change, and semiotics, media and culture, critical reading and writing, and consumer insight mining. Madam, I welcome you to the FTP conducted by the School of Media and Communication, Adamas University. We can't thank you enough for being here with us. So, ma'am, the stage is all yours. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, Swati, ma'am. Thanks, Professor Shayak, for allowing me to be a part of this forum. and I hope I do justice to the what is being talked about. Uh, uh, to begin with, I would say that it is also my personal interest to talk about this topic today, because I see a lot of research happening now, especially on OTT platforms post COVID. All of those binge watching and all these things are becoming very popular. A lot of my students want to do research on this, and I am also beginning to learn more and more about this. So I thought it's like a sounding board here, and I wish that I also get some insights here. Let's make it very participatory two way. uh, so I would like to share my 2 cents that I know about OTT. I just start sharing my screen here. Is the screen visible? Is my presentation visible?
Yes, it's perfectly fine.
Sorry. So, I chose to talk about OTT platforms and to look at them in the light of media studies and audience making, like I would like to call it here. And, just a little bit history of OTT. So, after doing some research on, the some literature review, some facts, that I've put here in my presentation. The first ever over-the-top OTT live stream occurred in 1995, which was done by ESPN. A Major League Baseball game was the one that was broadcasted. Following that, big tech companies such as Microsoft and Apple have competed to develop the best OTT streaming technology. So, since it's good business, we need to see here that a lot of technology companies would like to be a part of this, and I think that leads to a lot of media technology determinism, one of the lenses that we will look at when we go ahead. And by the late 2000s, streaming services such as Netflix, Amazon Prime Video and others had made this technology popular. So there can be many ways of defining OTT. Sorry,
interrupt. Could you please put on video?
You want me to put on the video?
Because it is technical. Thank you.
Is that fine?
Thank you.
Okay. So there could be various ways of defining OTT, for the purpose of your research. But then one of the definitions that I put here, which is very basic definition, OTT refers to any sort of video or streaming media that offers a viewer with direct access to movies or TV shows through the internet. OTT services allow users to stream movies, web series, and other videos over the web. Now, we can look at various definitions after doing a lot of, some literature review. One can define it in terms of binge watching. You can define it in terms of subscription, in terms of technology. And I think those are the initial questions I think that we need to address first when we jump into OTT research. And the platforms are also mentioned here: Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hotstar. That could be another way of saying that, your go-to definition could be that these are OTT platforms, if you had to define it quickly. Moving on. So how do OTT media invest in online content? This could be syndicated content wherein an agency is hired or a production house is hired to make shows for an OTT platform, or for a channel. From a channel it can be bought. So there are a few ways of looking at it. Now this particular slide will help us in understanding the way media economics, if you look at that lens of looking at OTT. I'll try and sum it up, but please bear with me till I reach there. So how OTT media invest in online content. Okay, so we're looking at now the business or the economics part of it. So they could be self-production. They could have their in-house agencies, in-house production houses making shows and content. And another thing that this talks about, this leads us to understand, is that how the industry itself is growing, and how there is demand for people such as content creators, quirky thinkers, people, designers, people coming from different domains with different experience, how they can contribute to content. Like a lot of producers would say that, one side you're talking about nepotism, but, look at us, we're producing so many shows. We don't have enough talent. So we're always constantly hunting for talent. So business of media could also be looked at from that point of view in terms of employability that it's generating now with OTT. So OTT, the first self-production, OTT platforms make movies and web series by assembling a crew and funding their ideas in order to produce original content that can be viewed on their apps. Then is purchasing broadcasting rights. Okay, so you already have shows with TV channels, and you could then do a tie-up, or you can you can buy broadcasting rights, and then make your OTT platform more viable, more interesting for the kind of viewers that you want to land with. For example, Anupama, as one of the many women, it resonated with a lot of women here, that Anupama became number 1 serial, and it talks about emancipation, it talks about all of that, and that again, in terms of content, we can look at it from the point of view of how Janice Radway would define how women consume certain kind of content. We'll come to that also. But then here, because Anupama is a very, very popular serial, it makes a lot of sense. So Disney, Hotstar buys that content, and they collaborate, and it becomes all the star content, Star Plus content. It comes on your Disney Hotstar platform. So purchasing broadcasting rights of certain shows which are very popular. That is another way of how OTT media is invested in. I'm sorry for the spelling there. The Indian video OTT market is expected to expand to $1.1 billion by 2020, from 2020 to $4 billion to 2025. So another very good, we will be in business for sure. The OTT market is also expected to grow with from 0.6 billion in 2021 to 1.1 billion in 2025. This is just a few statistics we picked up from here and there. My students keep writing about these topics. Over the next few years, India's OTT market is expected to increase at a compounded average growth rate of almost 29%. And by 2025, the number of OTT users is estimated to reach about 462.7 million. And we also know about, talking about economics, we also know about the demographic dividend that India enjoys. With that comes the kind of content that is in demand, of course. The number of TVs being purchased, phones being purchased, laptops being purchased, and the internet subscriptions and all of OTT subscriptions and all of that. So this market is expanding, and it rides on technology, right? We'll come to that also. When you look at lenses of looking at, or ways of looking at OTT theorizing. Moving on, yeah. So I found this slide very interesting, just a swanky slide to make it colorful, the presentation. So the biggest market share right now is with Netflix, Prime Video also, and Disney Hotstar very close. So these are conglomerates. When we look at the political economy of media also, we can look at, since my research deals with that. So what kind of technology and what businesses are allowed, to flourish and to do business in this area. So Netflix, Prime, Amazon Prime, and Disney Hotstar, the leaders here. Moving on very quickly. Can I move on? Okay. So just a few trivia here. 89% of users stream videos via mobile devices. Okay, so it's very interesting to keep that in mind because it has its own dynamics where you're watching it. So it leads to private versus public consumption. How private is private? All of that. When are you watching it? So as opposed to watching it in the living room, where somebody wants to watch news and somebody else wants to watch the Big Bang Theory and somebody else wants to watch Anupama. Here is your own mobile data device, and you have the liberty to watch it at your own in your own space. So 85% of Indian subscribers will be internet ready by 2024. So I was talking about demographic dividend. 58% of users stream videos via TV apps, which is far less than we're looking at mobile here. And so these two facts, if we put together, it could also look at urban versus rural. It could look at various age groups who have access to phones versus watching it with everyone, on TV. And then majority of OTT consumers are between the age group of 13 to 30. Okay. Now, why am I, again, putting things into perspective? Why am I even talking about these things? It's because through this discussion today, I would like to look at the various, and discuss with fellow faculty members and researchers what could be the various ways or lenses of looking at doing research on OTT. What could be the various ways of theorizing it? So when we talk of content versus the economics of media itself versus technology, and anything else that various ways of defining and looking at OTT theorizing, right? So now there could be various forms of again, within the realm of media economics, various forms of subscription. Now, how does that affect the business model? Is that if it is subscription based, then you're paying for subscription and making your viewing experience ad free, correct? And if it is you're not paying for it, if it is free, if it is complimentary along with your phone connection, then you're somebody else is paying for your viewing, which is the advertiser, correct? So now again, it impacts the advertising industry. Within that, it affects media planning, media buying. It affects how many people are going to be hired for generating content in terms of advertising. And with advertising becoming ubiquitous all around us and we becoming ad blind day by day, what are those dynamics? That is another area of research we can look at. So some ways of defining the media OTT business models could be ad-based video on demand. This model allows the users to watch the content for free, like I said. So it could be things like Woot, MX Player. These platforms make money through the ad revenue model, in which they charge brands and businesses for displaying advertisements on their platform. Okay, so you don't have to pay for subscription. This is content which is free flowing. It's coming to you. You perchance watch it, or you're not really paying for for the subscription. Then there is subscription video on demand, correct? So this is where Netflix, Amazon, and Sony Live come into picture. It also depends upon the premium and exclusivity of the content and the quality of content. People would pay to watch Netflix content, correct? So they demand a premium, which is the subscription amount that the viewer has to pay. The OTT applications earn money through this model by charging customers a subscription fee.
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am, you are on mute. I think you have become mute by mistake.
Oh my God, since when am I on mute?
Just a few seconds ago.
Okay, I'll repeat this slide.
A few seconds before, just repeat the last line.
Or sorry. So So everyone heard about the ad-based video on demand? Should I repeat the last point? Subscription on video on demand? I'll repeat the slide. Okay. So what I was talking about here was that uh, this particular slide will talk about the business models in terms of who is paying for the content that is being uh, aired. So in case it is ad based, then the viewer is not paying anything for the experience for watching content. It is the advertiser who's paying for your experience, correct? And then if it is subscription based, the second point here, then Netflix, Amazon Prime, Sony Live, they would charge you a premium for the quality of content that they are generating. Okay, and that becomes the subscription based model of viewing. These are very basic definitions of how, again, you can define OTT in terms of a business model, in terms of viewership. Again, please keep that in mind. That is the main idea here. As to how are the various ways of defining OTT, which leads us to various paradigms of thinking, which leads us to the research methodology that we're going to engage with. I think there's a chat coming. Oh, that's just basic. Can I move on? Did I miss anything on the slide? Anyone wants to ask anything? You can go ahead. Okay. Oh, this is just an example of what I was talking. I think I can skip the slide. These are also examples. So Hotstar is one of the largest streaming platforms with about 300 million subscribers. And close, in the same, vicinity as Z5. So then, as we move forward, what does this mean in the Indian context? So in India, the OTT space is emerging as opposed to traditional television viewing system. And I would like to ask the audience, that how is your experience of watching OTT different from what it is today? Anyone?
If you want to answer the question, the participants, please raise your hand. Anyone? Okay, ma'am, there's...
Okay, please go ahead.
Mr. Papni Kamli. He says that OTT and without ads.
Yeah, that's the go-to answer. Everyone would give that answer. Ever since OTT has come into our lives, and I hope this resonates with a lot of people here, it's very difficult to watch normal traditional TV because the experience is totally different. You've lost your train of thought by the time the next scene comes up. Okay, and every time Mihir dies and comes back, it was always on the Saturday evening show or the Friday evening show, where for the next 2 days you'll be in suspense. Am I right? So that viewing experience has changed. Now I can quickly jump on to what had happened to Mihir when he died. How has he come back to life? Okay, I'm just giving this is example from Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi, if you've watched that serial. So men get resurrected in that serial, and Ba lives on for 1,000 years. So that experience of that continuation, you can enjoy it better. And then it becomes a water cooler discussion. You watched it. You don't want that FOMO, you don't want to miss out on anything. If everyone is watching the Fame game, I should be able to contribute to the conversation. Okay, so that leads us to use and gratification.
There's one chat.
Yeah, made life easier, ad-free, lots of options, self-paced, saves ticket costs. Yes, thank you. Yes, all of those things.
Again, ma'am, Swapnil Kamble, he says that, and it suggests me as per my previous genre.
What does that mean?
Okay, Mr. Swapnil, you speak. Okay, ma'am. In the meantime, Deebalina, your hand. So, ma'am, mute yourself.
Sorry.
Deebalina, ma'am.
Oh.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning, Debalina ma'am.
I have a question. You told that this OTT platform we can't watch these in traditional television. So is it worthy for the people? That is a large number of people live in rural areas. So it's not possible for them to watch or to observe OTT platform. So is it worthy?
Okay. I think my response is like sort of mixed to this, in the sense that um, when you are looking at the technology revolution in terms of subscription to postpaid and prepaid phone connections, the highest value added services are subscribed to by the rural audience. And I mentioned in one of my previous slides that 89% of people watch a lot of OTT content on phones as compared to on TV. It's about 56%. Basing it on that understanding or that assumption, I would say that a lot of people in rural areas do have access to OTT content via the phone connections that they have. Another a real life example, not rural. This is urban, but let's say a class distinction I'm trying to make here. I watch Anupama. I was watching Anupama. Now I don't. And my house help, she stays in the quarters outside the house. So one day I heard the song that plays, that title song that plays, Anupama. So I know she also watches. So I could see, and I rushed out to see what she's doing. We like to observe media consumption behavior. So she was also on the same page as I was. Okay, on television it was one episode behind us. On Hotstar, I can watch the next episode. She is in line with me. She also has subscription to Hotstar, and she also watches the same content. Okay, so we are yes, you can talk about digital divide here. That could be another way of looking at things. Yes, but then OTT is being consumed in rural areas also. Was that your question? Am I answering?
Yes, ma'am. But during taking class through online mode during the pandemic period, we have faced a great problem that they don't have, most of the students don't have, smartphone. So how can it be possible to observe, OTT platform through their ordinary mobile?
Correct. So I think, ma'am, that answers the question itself, that when we're talking about penetration of OTT platforms, this, I think, what you're saying right now is a very good research question. It's a very good research to take up. After all, we are looking at the variance, aren't we? We are looking at the fag ends of the bell curve. Who are the ones who are the outliers? So if we can look at an inclusive way of, let's say, the research question is, does OTT reach out to the rural audience? Then, of course, it answers your question. Then it doesn't, maybe, or it reaches some and it doesn't reach others. So in itself, what you're pointing out is very pertinent. So we can look at, so I was talking out of my experience, right? So, but you have an experience that where you say that it was very difficult to reach out even for online classes. Talk less about OTT. So that in itself, ma'am, I think is a very, very pertinent question to ask in a country like India, I would say. And yeah, I agree with that, what you're saying.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Earlier by Swapnil sir, like he actually wants to talk about the personalization of content. He said Netflix also gives you suggestions based on what is your viewing experience, what you have watched before. Based on that, Netflix keeps on giving you suggestions, so that you can watch those series in future. That is
Correct. Yes. And that happens all around us, isn't it? Like AI is all around us. If you book tickets to go to Kolkata, you will also be told what hotels you can go and stay in. So, is that a question? Was that a question?
no, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'll move on.
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
Okay. So, making it very, very robust, I would say, in terms of the Indian market and the discussion, the moment it comes to that, you see how lively the discussion becomes. So in India, the OTT space is emerging from the traditional television and gaining its own fan base. Between March and July 2020, thanks to the pandemic, the number of OTT subscribers reached about 30 million. The outbreak of COVID, of course, has helped in this. In 2023, it is estimated that India will have a massive OTT growth going forward. I think now with 5G and all that coming into picture, television sets becoming cheaper, subscriptions being added on to, it is, so if I recharge my phone with an annual subscription for Airtel, I get 1 year free Disney Hotstar with that. How about that? Okay. So talk about technology effects. In terms of, we can look at it from the point of view of manual castles. We'll come to that. Then Disney plus Hotstar has about 43 million that I've told already. So 85% of Indian customers will be internet ready. Again, it's sorry for the repetition here. I think I've said that earlier. Okay. So this is where, I think this should be of interest to a lot of people. Now that I think I've set the ground for discussion. So ways of looking at OTT. This is also my area of interest right now when different students approach you, with different kinds of questions about OTT. How in your head you would like to categorize it and then also guide them further, for research. I think these are the ways to look at it. And if there are more, please feel free to add to it. It will be a takeaway for me. So when we look at cultivated audience, so where it started was where at least for me the discussion started was where people said that binge watching. What is binge watching? So before even defining OTT, we were all trying to define what is binge. Watching all seasons of MasterChef back to back, right? So that's where it all started. Watching the stand-up comedy shows back to back, all of that. And then added to that was COVID. So these are two usually research questions that people like to address, that what is the impact on viewership, on binge watching. So how the audience is consuming content, what content they are consuming, in terms of binge, and then how COVID has impacted that. A lot of research is already out there. A lot of white papers are there. A lot of I think Mica itself has, they've come up with, I will share that. I will share all my sources from where I'm talking. I'll share all those papers today. They've come up with a white paper where they talk about all various data of viewership, subscription, etc. of various OTT platforms. It's a very good read. It's a ready reckoner. You can refer to it and you can cite it. Then talking about the socio-psychological tradition, in that case, talking about vicarious pleasure in terms of content. Now you'll be looking at content. So when it comes to the kind of content that gives you, you are not a part of it, but it's an emancipation watching it. Squid Game has a lot of viewership, right? I personally have not really watched it, but I feel that Big Boss is another reality TV, So when things like this are streamed, it leads to a lot of vicarious pleasure. This can be studied through, again, through cultivation. It can be studied through Bandura's socio-psychological tradition. It can also be studied through, I feel, user and gratifications. Okay, a lot of psychological research can be done, or behavioral research can be done in terms of looking at viewers within a particular household. So I personally have observed this trend, and I want to study this, that in cities like Bangalore, I'm in Bangalore right now, and I have a lot of young colleagues, newly married ones, and all of that, married 3-4 years down. A lot of them I see, they have their own laptops, their own phones, their own space. How we define space? This can be defined as space. So within the living room, the place, your space is your laptop, your world you're interacting with, and you have your own shows that you like to watch. So it's not like it's a combined experience of watching television together. Okay, so good old television days, sometimes children would have to move out of the room. If there's an ad of a sanitary napkin, you have to move out of the room or do something, and people will start pretending they're talking to each other or something. Or if there's a lovey-dovey scene, things like that, which is not the case now, correct? So you have your own space. So trying to define space and OTT could be another way of looking at public and private, okay, ways of defining OTT. Then what has it led in terms of behavioral economics, okay, economics in terms of consumers, the kind of consumers that it creates, the kind of audiences that it creates, is where I see a lot of young couples not investing in joint assets. They would like to rent an apartment, not buy one. They do not have cars. Okay, they and that's a big thing. Even the finance minister, I think last year she talked about it, that people have stopped buying property, youngsters. Okay, so the investment in sort of fixed or long-term or short-term fixed assets has reduced. Okay, what does that lead to in terms of you can bring in Durkheim. Are we looking at an anomy, a new anomy in society? So that can be looked at as how connected are people to each other? Okay, if you don't have joint assets. On top of that, they don't want to have kids. So dinks, like we call it, double income, no kids, my career, my laptop, my Netflix, okay, leads to the Netflixed audience. I have a paper on this. I will share it. From Netflix to Netflixed, it's called. So what kind of audience is being created? So it can be studied in terms of socio-psychological behavior. So you can look at a lot of theories, borrow a lot from psychology, like, and I think that keeps our discussion alive as a discipline, as communication studies, because okay, so communication, for it to be called a discipline, for it to flourish, we need to borrow from a lot of traditions. We like to think of ourselves as multidisciplinary, and also looking at narratives from different points of view, okay, different lenses of looking at things. So if this is the way we can, I think, bring in the psychological tradition into communication, right? How the audience is being created by the OTT platforms. Then there could be, like I said, user gratification, how actively people are choosing what to watch for escape, for vicarious pleasure, to be in sync with the society, to know, to avoid FOMO. All of those things could lead you to do a factor analysis. By taking all these factors into consideration, do a factor analysis and look at it through the lens of use and gratifications. And of course, then continue the discussion, I would say. again, I talked about living room wars. This has been borrowed from the title of the book of Ian Ang, right? So she has two phenomenal books: Living Room Wars, Desperately Seeking Audiences, and another one called Watching Dallas. So I think her work puts a lot of emphasis, a lot of focus, a lot of light on audiences, okay, and why they consume content. So that sweet spot where you are able to study why audiences consume a certain kind of audience content, right? So that is where we refer to Ian Ang, we refer to even Janice Radway, her work where she talks about reading the romance, and why women like to read romance, and by that extension, why when I watch Anupama, my husband looks down upon me. Why is this even escape for you? Why would women today, who are already so privileged, why do they want to watch Anupama? Okay, so that why is where we come in as researchers. We want to study that why, isn't it? So this also leads to the discourse of OTT. Okay, so if it is Amazon Prime, there is a certain kind of genre that is acceptable. You will get things like Mirzapur, Gurgaon, all of those things, right? Gangs of Wasipur, back to back, both the movies you'll watch. So that's the discourse of OTT. When you say OTT, right? So again,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
yes,
Shayad sir, he wants to. He has raised his hand.
yes, please go ahead.
Good morning, ma'am. Yeah, sorry to interrupt. You mentioned about the content of the OTT and the impact of it. But I just wanted to point out the two factors which were till date, I mean, till now it is restricted on television audience. Two factors. One is the nudity, vulgarity, and another one is the violence, which has been used in OTT platforms. I mean, across all the feeds. If you have watched, Sacred Games first season, it has a frontal nudity, right? There are vulgarity, there are violence. I mean, showing raw flashes, bloods, which is still now restricted on television audience. So, is it actually impact? Because see now, I can understand. OTT platforms are subscription based. It is not for everyone, but does not restrict some of the audiences who are below 18 years to access those content, because most of the contents are available on on pirated websites. Some of the contents are available on torrents, so they can easily download and watch those contents. So is it kind of creating a bad, or I would say acting on social constructivism for those children who does not have the, for example, mental ability to understand and differentiate what is good and what is bad, and what I should reciprocate from those content and what I should not. So do you think?
Okay, so I think a lot of things you're asking or commenting on. One is that raw content, or what you call as in your face content, it's there for viewership, right? And it has viewership. Internet is popular because of porn, isn't it?
Yes.
So and this is again, I'm not trying to defend OTT. I'm also trying to theorize on this. It's not that they're watching a certain kind of content, nudity or whatever, only on because of OTT this is going to happen. We may not find a direct connection between that, even though if this is a question, it's worthy of studying it. But then what lens would you use? You can't blankly say nudity is bad. We can't make those statements, isn't it? So there has to be inclusivity in terms of giving credibility to the kind of viewership a particular content has. You have to take it into consideration. Why people consume porn, for instance. Okay. Am I answering your question? Am I on track? Is that your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to emphasize on that it is still no for television audience, right? On television content, we cannot see such
It's
things.
it's more controlled.
More controlled and filtered. I can understand it is subscription based, but as you know that on YouTube, certain contents are also there, which is not for the consumption of underage people, but there are. That's why they came up with this children version of YouTube, where, for example, it's
YouTube
very
Kids.
common for
Yeah.
YouTube Kids, so that they filter out the contents which are not meant for kids.
Correct.
So
And you have to key in your age, and then appropriate content comes for you.
When parents they can actually control the environment and the control have the control over the content the kids are watching. So which is not there on OTT. I know maybe it's not in that way possible, but still, maybe it's actually putting because even if I'm leaving, not taking violence or nudity. I don't know whether you have seen this on Netflix, 13 Reasons Why. Based on novel, it's so depressing. I also got a lot of feedbacks from the students. I mean, this was very, very depressing. Though it was adapted from a novel, but it shows kind of, it reflects. I took those, feedbacks from many of my students. That
what was depressing? I lost that.
13 Reasons Why. So it talks about a suicide, why a girl committed suicide. So 13 reasons why the girl actually committed suicide. It was on.
So it's a bad adaptation, is what you're saying? It was a bad adaptation.
It actually disseminates a lot of negativity. And it's actually pushing those people to face the negativity, because if you see the entire series also, it shows a lot of negativity and why people should commit suicide and why people are prone to suicidal tendencies. So such contents are also becoming very, very popular.
So I don't know. So I would say that how about, yes, on the face of it might look bad according to a person's sensitivity. Okay, if I'm too sensitive to it, if I, then of course it looks bad to me. But then how are we going to prove this? That's why I say the discourse of OTT itself. That when you say OTT, you know that sex, violence, vulgarity is ab hone wala hai. Okay, and it gives a lot of vicarious pleasure to watch Mirzapur. It is one of the most watched shows on Amazon Prime, correct? So where do you draw the line? Again, you do a discourse analysis. You can do, of course, you start with semiotic analysis. You start with that, isn't it? So, and then you look at the meanings attached, the discourse around it, and take it further to, and back it up with theories you borrow from psychology and try and explain it. Isn't it?
Ma'am, if you can explain the discourse analysis on those, because again, I'm not saying good and bad, because good and bad is already individual perspective, and we take it from the largest perspective when we get the data from a lot of people, and that we decide.
Yeah. So we can't pass it off as an opinion, right? That's why we write papers. That's why we do research, that this looks wrong. Let me prove it. Correct. That's why we do academic writing. So, in terms of the discourse of OTT, my 2 cents would be that one is the tradition, the way you look at the rhetoric of discourse itself, that Doordarshan program ka discourse versus OTT program discourse. Correct? So there is a way, there is a tradition, there is a historicity in the framework of generating content itself, and you expect it. It's as simple as saying, how I would talk to my daughter versus how I would talk here. The discourse is different. The context is different. So discourse would be grounded in the context, in the historicity. And then how you do discourse would be by picking up, I think. You can pick up the show. Let's say you were saying 13, the content that you were talking about, right? So let's say Mirzapur. You want to take it up on the basis of certain scenes, give a rationale why you're picking it up, and then look at it through the lens of what kind of discourse you want to do. You are looking at units in terms of language. You're looking at text as visual. And then you're looking at power dynamics, who's saying what. So then you put it into categories, and then you do a discussion based on a theory that you pick up. Okay, so do you do a Foucauldian discourse analysis, or you do a critical discourse analysis? You further base it in a theory that you pick up, which you can borrow from psychology, you can borrow from cultural studies, you can borrow from linguistics. That's how you back up your. So here I was talking about the content of the discourse of OTT itself, the platform itself. What does it mean? What does it signify, if I may say? Let's talk about semiotics. When I say OTT, what comes to mind? My dark Amazon Prime screen.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, because we have time, can you, once you complete these slides, can you show us how to do this discourse analysis for OTT platform, for example, coding, that would be helpful for us to,
I'll try. I think I have a certain kind of example I have. I think that will address, I'm coming to that. I think I will be able to address that. Let's see. Okay. So then, moving from discourse, the other way of looking at it could be in terms of media technology determinism. Okay. When you look at not per se the content, you're not per se looking at the audiences, you're looking at the popularity. How suddenly OTT became so popular is what you're talking about. Correct. So you look at the advancement of technology, how messages are traveling, how one technology is benefiting another. So you bring in Marshall McLuhan, of course, starting point when you talk of media technology determinism, and you bring in Manuel Castells. Okay, so where they say that when one technology comes up, it needs other supporting technology, and then it becomes a roller coaster. Then a lot of other technology is supporting this particular technology, it's growing, and with that, the kind of society that it forms. What does it do to the audience? What kind of audience is created with that? So again, you can take it back to private sphere versus watching it in your living room. You can look at, again, going back to Shaiksa's suggestion on looking at the kind of content children are viewing because they have access to a certain kind of technology. Why is my daughter even watching YouTube Kids? Why does she have her own phone? Right? So you can talk about existential. You can bring it back to postmodernism. You can look at what is the existential condition right now. Why do we need to give phones to our kids? Why do we need to give them access? Where am I? Why are they not out playing? Again, takes you back to behavior. Okay, so studying child psychology, studying child behavior. So that could be another way in which you can link even media technology to behavior, to consumption of content, right? And then, of course, you do semiotics on content, good old semiotics, where you look at, sign, signifier, signified paradigms and syntagmatic relationship, cultural codes, all of that. You pick up a show, start with that. And, first, let's say, and I get this a lot. I think yesterday also that, how do you do semiotics? Like, yeah, it's how you do it. How I would like to do it, how I've done and it's got published is that you look at the basic definitions. You take a definition of, what you will privilege in terms of semiotics as a tool of analysis, right? And then within that, you define what you're looking at through the text. Suppose you have a picture, you're defining what all signs you're looking at, and then you put it in a framework. You can borrow a standardized framework and put it in that, and through that you can analyze. Again, what I'm saying is qualitative research will have to be grounded in theory. You have to privilege a particular theory for the sake of your research. So that's how you find validity in qualitative research. I'm sure that you know that, right? So otherwise it's your opinion versus mine, but then I'm talking from the vantage point of my theory, my codes that I have created, and that's how I'm studying it. So that's how you present the validity of your study. This is what I sought to achieve, and I have achieved this through my study. Right? That's how you do content semiotics. I can give examples of that as we go along. Then there is business of OTT, like I've talked about earlier, which is syndicated content, subscription models, and all of that. In terms of then, of course, media economics. How much is one content once you've created, and you're earning through that content over and over and over again. So that it leads to the economics of the content being generated. Okay, in terms of media economics, that is another way of looking at the research on media. From the point of view of people who want to know what content should I create if I'm a content creator. So I would say again, like even Shaikh sir pointed out earlier, that why are people watching what they are watching? Can you please give me a moment? I'm sorry about the interruption. So if I am a content creator, what do I need to go through? Right? So looking from that point of view also, we look at the content that is being generated, studying or creating genuine real content. I don't know if people have watched this documentary called, it's not new, it's, I think 2014 or 13. It's called Born into Brothels by Zana Brisky. It becomes her research work where she studies the lived conditions of people in Calcutta brothels, and what the kids, how it affects the kids. Yes, Sharmila man has seen it. So how it what impact it has. Now, there are problems with that content because it is again an ethic and emic view. Like ethnographers would say that, it is not an insider's view. All said and done, you will not get that feeling. I didn't when I watched that film. It was very high-handed, I thought. Even though something like this was not done, and it gives a very good insight into here, right here, if you put things into perspective around you, you have a show right there. And that is for people who are wanting to create content, looking at it from that point of view. If you were teaching a creative class, what content you should be creating, it should be very genuine in terms of OTT. It should be a lived experience. It has to answer an existential question. Only then I'm going to watch it. Otherwise, those case serials have been there. We've made fun of them for the last 20 years. We didn't watch them. For the correct reasons. Mihir dies every weekend and Mihir gets resurrected after 2 months, right? So that is not my reality. That's not what I want to watch. It gives me no pleasure in watching. But if you show me that, we are talking about smart cities, and that's another area of research, I love that area, that we're talking about smart cities. Have we gendered the discourse of smart cities? What does a smart city mean to a woman? Okay, let's make a video on that and put it up. These are just, again, examples from my thought processes, my research. Of course, there can be many more. So, again, going back to the discourse of OTT, the discourse of OTT would again inform you that it has to be a lived experience, it has to be something near me, it has to be something that I'm interested in genuinely. Only then it answers a certain crisis. So that, and then the other way around, other content creators can be studied. What was it that they did? What is the cinema of Tigmanshu Dhulia? What do I learn from it? So you can, the post analysis also can feed into content creation for people who are wanting to do it. Okay. So, yes.
Can we take a short break now?
Oh, I didn't know. It's becoming too much for people, is it? It's very heavy.
I'm just giving a short break to everyone so that they can reflect on what.
Sure. Please.
You also can bring some more.
Sure.
So just 5. We all will be here.
Okay. Am I within the time? What's the time?
Yes, ma'am. Surely, surely. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
That's relaxation for everyone.
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
So just we'll be on mute just for 5 minutes.
Okay.
Shiba ma'am, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Can we start?
Everyone, please pay attention. Ma'am is restarting this test session. Yes, ma'am. Please do start.
Within all this, within this context, we talk about audience making, right? So I hope I'm able to define, what I meant by audience making, what it does to audience, where they're consuming content, what content, and how what person am I, when I'm a consumer of OTT. Okay, and then something very interesting. I wanted to look at the relationship between social media and OTT. So, do we look at it at convergence? This may sound funny, but one of the questions was, are YouTube ads OTT? Okay, a question that came up. So, you look at YouTube as a social video platform, correct? So what part of it is, if we try and define OTT being in terms of my choice, so what part of it is OTT and what is not? So very interestingly, this may sound a little far-fetched right now, are we looking at the experience of OTT as not a term to define OTT, but as a lived experience within discourse of OTT? Are we looking at the OTT-ness of my consumption? Do I make sense here? Right? So the moment you make it a verb rather than a noun, it becomes the experience of consuming OTT. So what bit of me is of my experience on YouTube OTT? Okay. If that's not clear, I'll give an example. So if you try and define a term such as middle class, there can be various ways of defining it. It is a label, let's say on income, on the assets that I have, okay, or the qualification. If we look at SEC classification, socioeconomic classification according to consumer behavior. So if I have the qualification, I have the assets, I have the correct occupation to be in SEC A. I am SEC A according to that. But the moment I step out of my car, I go and haggle for free ka dhanya. Correct? So that time suddenly I become middle class, if that characterizes it. So we looked at the experience, the verb middle classness. Okay. So you can also look at theorizing in terms of OTT as the experience of OTT, the verb, the action, OTT-ness. Okay, that could be another way of looking at it. I feel so proud of coming up with this. Okay. So just some color to my presentation here. Things that would resonate with a lot of people for various reasons. Anupama, because women are looked down upon consuming that. Fame game, because I think it brings out a lot of hidden feelings, emotions, etc., etc. It answers those questions. Vampire Diaries, for a very long time, it's been what Anupama, when I watch Anupama, what it is to my husband that he can't understand. Vampire Diaries is, when my students watch it, I can't understand. What is it, And believe you me, I have watched Twilight. I've been a fan of Twilight in that age, or, when I was, when it was new, I've gone and watched the 9 o'clock show in the theater when it got released, the first show. Okay. So, but now I can't tolerate it. So in terms of behavior, looking at content, and then the regionalization of content, how content is becoming regional for consumption of people. Like I think Debelina ma'am was earlier pointing out to rural audience, semi-rural audience, or let's say we go into language as a question of study. then look at the business of OTT. So in terms of regional content, what is regional content that is being consumed? Why are they doing it? So this forms an interesting aspect of why, because another thing about the discourse of OTT is that it is a very, very Western discourse. This, because it's new technology, it comes to us as in a post-colonial environment in India. Everything comes to us as technology from the West. So now bringing it back, studying it in the post-colonial context of language could be another way of looking at it. Okay, and Gairaya is being talked about from various different angles of, how the characters are crazy, why, but it becomes a talking point. So there could be, these are some examples of looking at things from various lenses, and looking at advertising and that sort of making business viable. That's why all of us are here, for the business, right? All of us capitalists. And then this is just a slide on how advertising becomes important for business. It's to induce to create awareness, induce business action through sales volume, etc., and then it provides return on investment to the brand. Okay, an example would be now Spotify taken in as an audio OTT platform, where you choose what you're going to consume. The kind of, it asks you like jazz, you like Indian classical, you like indie pop, all of those checklist you make, and then it throws out content to you. And then when you go and want to watch or want to listen to Ella Fitzgerald, it shows you an ad. Because I'm in Bangalore, I'm not a Kannadiga, I get a Kannada ad first. I have no idea what it's saying. Of course, I can see it. And then it says, now you enjoy your 30 minutes of free, ad-free music. So there's a question. Analysis. I was working on a research paper, The Age of Renaissance in OTT Platforms, a critical analysis on web series to explore the popularity of Patal Lok and Family Man.
May I read it out?
That's okay. Long format from Amazon Prime. Can you please shed some light about the methodology and basic principles? Okay. I'll just quickly finish the slide and I'll come to that. Okay. Otherwise, I'll lose my chain of thought. I'm coming to the examples. And I hope I do justice to that. So then this slide basically talks about the revenue model, or how advertising can also be looked at if you're studying that in terms of OTT platforms. Okay. Very quickly, moving on to YouTube, again has a certain kind of advertising which is skippable ads, again based on the basic tenet. If you are paying for subscription, it's free. If you're not paying for subscription, someone else is paying for that subscription, they are definitely going to show you ads. These are the two ways of bifurcating skippable, unskippable ad content. Okay. Or looking at the economics of it as to who's paying for that content to be watched or consumed. Can I just skip these ads then, and then I'll come to my examples. So those are the benefits of looking at ads, and why you would do an advertising research, a very positivist kind of research in terms of what is the impact of advertising on OTT platforms, on the business, on the brand, etc., etc. So though that's another example of the various lenses that we were talking about. Of course, you can look at it through, going to the very basics, looking at, summing up the traditions, could be the socio-psychological, cybernetic, rhetorical, semiotic, socio-cultural, critical, and phenomenological. These two slides are about my traditions of research that I want to talk about. Okay, this slide I think is everywhere on the internet, so everyone has seen this. Do I need to go into some basics of semiotics, or that would be clear? Can anyone just give me a clue on that? Shaikh sir?
skip the basics and like discuss whatever.
All right. So now, it's open for discussion. When you see this ad, what do you see? Is it visible? So we're talking of semiotics now. I've come to the examples. I'll try and put it into perspective as to how you do it. Okay, it says, the body copy says, you're not the first, but do you really care? BMW pre-owned cars. I hope Shaiksa is not offended by that. Okay, yes, Shaiksa, got it. I'll skip the basics. So if we try and explain this ad very quickly, we look at the signs, the woman with an inviting gaze, the BMW logo of pre-owned cars, and the body copy which says, you're not the first, but do you really care? Okay. So these signs can be explained through a paradigmatic and syntagmatic relationship. Okay. Paradigm is what is being shown here and what could have been shown here. They could have showed a rickety car, but they chose to compare it to an inviting gaze, to a woman with her disheveled hair. Probably she's lying down in bed. But since it is the BMW car, do you really care? Yeah. So, in terms of paradigmatic and syntagmatic relationship, like I said, you could have placed a car here, but you chose to place a woman, the imagery of a woman with an inviting gaze. Probably she's in bed. Okay. So this is how you look at this. Now, another example from my research is like, when you were asking how you do it, this is applicable to both semiotics and to you can do discourse with the help of this also. So you'll have your basics like your signs, signifiers, signified cultural codes, all of that. How do you make those codes? You can pick up. This is a pre-designed template, right? So it is a standardized format. You can pick up something like this. So it talks about 3 kinds of imagery of women in ads, right? And they become standardized. Why? Because a lot of research is done on them, and after doing research and getting similar results, the reliability increases. You can put your Cronbach's alpha and all, or you can read papers which say that this has validity. Okay, and then you can say that this is a standardized format that I privilege this for my research. This is what I'm going to take as the codes that I'm looking for in my research. That is one way of doing it. And then you back it up by theory. On that, you either apply semiotics, you can apply content, you can apply discourse. Okay? So the first one says that most ads show depreciated images of women in which they are shown as non-intelligent, non-rational, okay, or just as display items. Parts of body are on display, or they are shown as housewives who do not contribute financially to the household. Okay, so that is a depreciated image of a woman. Then there are idealized women. She's beautiful, she's skinny, that's how she is. At the same time, she's wearing an apron, wearing high heels, and making you the loveliest cakes in the kitchen. Okay, and then in Indian context, it could also be Caucasian-looking women, right? So you could be advertising for gold jewelry down in Kerala by showing a Caucasian woman. Does not resonate at all. I mean, we'll come to that. And then modern women images could be shown it could take you to the extreme end where she's shown as a superwoman, or somewhere in between. It balances depreciated and idealized, where she's shown as independent of man, if you're going for that, in your research. Now, all of this, you have to arrive at this through your review of literature. So your starting point, of course, your review of literature is what is informing this, what you're coming at. Okay. On the basis of this, then you choose your sample. I took 3 ads, and I'll just go through that, and then how this can be shown through, or how I can relate to this framework through ads. Okay. This is an Axe Angels ad. Okay. If you've seen that ad, has everyone or most of you have seen this ad? This is an Axe Fallen Angels ad. The name itself is Fallen Angels. Okay. So it starts with these women somehow magically coming out of the bolt and, landing on Earth. And why? Because this man smells so good after applying Axe. Brings out the radical feminist in me. And then what they do is they break their tiaras on the ground. Okay, a very significant moment in the ad. Okay, so you have to now look at all these as texts. You have to define what is text. What are you taking as text? Which particular scene, which particular shot are you, privileging in your research? You have to give a rationale for that. And that becomes a defining moment when she breaks her halo on all these angels, they break their halos on the floor, on the ground, because now they're ready to sin. They're fallen angels. Okay. Now this seems easy, but you have to arrive at this through research. Okay. And you arrive at it by giving these frameworks. Okay. So each and every sign will be talked about, tattered, or however you will define this dress. They've got wings, they've got halos, they are morbid looking, that white. Okay. Necrophilia probably in this ad. So necrophilia in itself, now the way I'm talking, of course I'm positioning myself as a feminist researcher who's looking at a standpoint. Okay, so now this becomes my theoretical grounding. This is a theory that I will use to substantiate my research. After all, where will I discuss my results? In theory. Yes, please.
Shaiksa has raised his hand. Shaiksa, please unmute yourself. So, okay, ma'am, I think
go ahead. Okay, so this is where I fit it in. You arrive at that this is a depreciated this is depreciated imagery of women being shown in ads. Then idealized woman, okay, Bharat Mata and all of that, where she looks like that, she smiles and makes 6 different kinds of breakfast early in the morning while everyone is still in bed, and they're shouting from bed, mera dosa, mera upma, I want idli, I want vada, all of that. Okay, so this falls into taking you back into the idealized imagery. Physically perfect, always young, beautiful, skinny, always tidy. So there.
Ma'am, can I ask a question? Sorry, that time I was not being able to unmute myself. Yeah, ma'am. So there's 2 concepts that I also came across when I was reading a novel, and I was also going through a paper, that objective reality and imagined reality. What we also, whatever we are, imagine whatever we think that it is. For example, money buys stuff, so that is the objective reality, and imagine reality that we perceive that this could do that. And so how this objective reality that we perceive for all the things, that this is violence, this I am thinking that this is violence, and if I'm seeing that this product is useful for me, that is my imagined reality, that this product is useful for me, and that has been inflected on my mind because by the brands or the company, right? So how semiotics and semiotical analysis can be used to define this objective imagined reality? because we recently did a similar chapter on this semiotics, where we took different ads that we were discussing and we focused on relationships, because most of the ads, many of the ads, they work on emotional ground, they work on emotional appeal, and they try to establish the relationship, for example, mother and daughter, or husband or wife, or mother and son, and they try to sell their products, right? So, but we were also lacking in semiotic senses there. We were also trying to find out the right tool to explain it, how this imagined reality, what we perceive, most of it, it's very much into commercializing, or I would say consumerized
Consumerism.
this
Yes, yes,
products. So,
yes.
how we can actually use, and what is the right tool in semiotics to actually explain those ads or the content or analysis of those ads?
Okay. So two ways of basically looking at it. One is looking at it as a tool to analyze. Okay. Then you connect semiotics to theory, which is post-structuralism, for instance. Okay. Or you're looking at it in terms of multimodal semiotics, where you're looking at the level of the text, the level of the language, the level of the visual. Okay, so I think there are 5 categories of multimodal. You can Google that. Okay, so you first break it down into that. Of course, you've done some literature review which informs your the sample that you're talking about. Okay, so you're picking up those ads or those texts, visual texts, to talk about objective reality and imagined reality. Correct. Now, I think what I would do is look at researches which talk about imagined and objective reality. That in itself will inform my codes. What am I going to? What are my cultural codes that I'm talking about? Now, once I found cultural codes, I connect it to post-structuralism. I can talk, or any theory. I can talk about theoretical concept and then explain.
Okay,
So imagine.
thank you.
Huh? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. I was looking for the tools and how to connect them.
Yeah, so one is your starting point, I think, should be multimodal semiotics, and then your theory itself will inform your codes within which you will study that, and that you will have to ground again in theory. Okay, another example would be same this picture, looking at imagined and in a cultural context. Feminism itself would be defined in terms of let's say a post-colonial context, right? So Bharat Mata, the way women would be projected post-independence. Okay, this is ideal. She looks like Lakshmi standing in front of a tiger lion, and so she is this all-achieving, multi-tasking woman. At the same time, the lion is there to protect her. So also then from in a cultural context, you could also look at it as something very basic. In feminism, like post-colonial feminism, we say that the difference between a woman who speaks English and who doesn't, right? So right there you have a disparity. Okay, I hope I'm able to put it in a perspective. So coming back to this image.
Sorry to interrupt you again.
Yes. Go ahead.
Selena ma'am, she wants to say something. Selena ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, it's a request. You please talk about special ops and criminal justice. And both of these were very much popular during the pandemic situation.
Criminal justice and?
Special ops.
Okay.
And both of these were very much popular in OTT platform.
Okay. So, in what, can you give me an example? I'm not being able to connect to that. An example of content in this case?
Deepalina ma'am, are you referring to any series in particular? Name the series.
Yes, ma'am, it was
Talking
a
about
web
Sushant Singh
series.
Rajput?
No, ma'am, Special Ops was a web series in which there was KK Menon.
Okay. And?
Yes,
I
it got
haven't seen it.
started by KK Menon.
Okay, I haven't seen it. Can you? But I'll still try, and that, I mean, that doesn't matter whether I've seen it or not.
Okay, no problem, no problem.
No, if you can ask me, like if it's a theoretical question, maybe I can answer it, because it's immaterial whether I've seen it or not. I mean, I can still try. So, in terms of crime, you're saying, and investigation. In terms of content,
Ma'am, what we'll do is that we'll take this question at the end because we have other questions lined up. No?
okay. So, can I go on to explain this example? So, this is my idealized women. And I wanted to talk about Padmavat, but we can talk about it later as we go along. Yes, please go ahead. Ask your question. Please ask your question.
The questions we'll take at the end. You can
Oh, sorry. My bad. Okay.
time to
Yeah. So another example of how, if you're doing discourse analysis also, you can ground it in theory. So this was another paper. Very quickly, again, I'm going to talk about it, where I was surprised. I was shocked when I saw Padmavat for different reasons. There was the Karni Sena thing happening, and the projection of Padmavat, the showcasing of Padmavati in the film. I think it was not about that at all, to my mind. To my mind, it was about very clear-cut characterization here, where there's Khilji, there is Rana Ratan Singh, Padmavat, and then there is I always forget his name. What was Sarb's character?
हेलो हाँ सर बताए जी जी सर प्रणाम सर
Who's talking?
बताए सर
So these were the basic four characters that come to my mind when I am doing looking at that film and thinking about it when I come back home. So, and then my paper was about looking at gendering the discourse of the film. And my theoretical framework, I used Orientalism by Edward Said. So in that, there's, according to me, the contrast is very clear between the civilized, sophisticated, clinical image of Rana Ratan Singh, which of course is a very, very, the Western way of influencing the Indian mind to look at something very, very perfect, like calendar art, So that's how Rana Ratan Singh appears. And then on the other extreme end of the continuum would be the character of Alauddin Khilji. There's no redemption for the character in the film. Okay. And then also the othering, the Orientalism, wherein, you show it happening in a certain context in history. It's happening somewhere in the Middle East. And he has Jim Sarb, I'm forgetting the name of the character again. He, his character being very, very, you're not able to understand what he's doing there. I'll come to that. And then Padmavati, as usual, Laura Mulvey would say, very, very coincidental to the film. Even though the film is called Padmavat, I think she was, okay, we know she's going to do Johar in the end, and that's it. She was looking pretty, all of that. But again, I felt just there for the sake of it. Comparing, in terms of Orientalism, you could compare Xerxes here. You can bring in the example of Xerxes. For people who are doing film theory, just an example for that. So, like I said, no redemption for Alauddin Khilji. Likewise, you have to, put so many layers upon the villain in order to other the person, that they are shown in a certain way. Of course, it's difficult to. These are aesthetics which are very difficult to put on Indian screens in when we talk of Xerxes. So it's brute. It's the way Khilji looks, right? And moving on, then the comparison between Jim Sarb's character was called. One second. If anyone can Google it for me and tell me. Yeah. So Jim Serb's character also questionable in terms of, his affinity to Alauddin Khilji. So when he's having a private moment with his wife, they show Jim Serb's character also there, which means that uh, he was also a relationship which is not explicitly shown on screen. So there is the sophisticated man, the Rana Ratan Singh, and then the other end being Alauddin Khilji, and then the other way of othering or eroticizing the Oriental man would be to look at him as a homosexual, which was also there in case of, the stark difference between, when Xerxes was shown in 300. So this is just an example I got to class to the discussion. Yeah, Malik Kafur. Thank you so much. His name was Malik Kafur. This can be open to discussion. And I've almost come to the end of my presentation. So if anyone wants to ask questions, can go ahead.
Earlier, there was a. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Earlier, there was a question from a colleague, Navina ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
discussing about a paper on which she was working, the paper platforms and the regeneration of long format content. So she wanted to share you, she wanted you to share certain things like how she can work on her research methodology and how she can improve her paper. So if you could just shed some light on it, ma'am.
So it's a critical analysis of web series to explore the popularity of Patal Lok and Family Man. So you're looking at the content, right? I'm assuming if it's content, then in that case, if this is a PhD thesis.
No, ma'am. Which paper she has been working on?
It's a research paper. Okay. So easy then. You can pick up a few episodes, I would say, to compare. Give a rationale for those episodes or defining moments, and then give rationale. That could be one way of looking at it. And then another way of selecting could be where the viewership was very high. You have to get your hands onto that kind of data. I think I can help in that. I will be sharing one of, where I get informed about a lot of OTT platforms. I'll share that. It's a white paper. So, of course, I'm sure you would have done that. Also, your rationale should include why you as a researcher are interested in this. In quantitative research, we would say that it's unbiased and this and that, but here we want to state our bias upfront. Why do I want to study it? It affects me. What is that? You have to present that and state it upfront because it informs your research. Okay, that's a given in qualitative research. Inclusivity, it's called. Right? Why should I be excluded? Another way of defining inclusivity. So you can look at, is it the same question here? What approach can be, oh, that is different, sorry. So in terms of methodology, you can look at, you can look at semiotics, you can look at discourse, you can even look at content. Any of the three you can look at. In that, you will have to, like how I started, first define OTT within that content, what content, on the basis of viewership, on the basis of popularity, all that defines your research. And it also informs your methodology. At the same time, it forms, if you're doing discourse or semiotics, it defines your codes. Okay. And then you start studying them. Okay. You start saying this is a sign and this is what is signified by it. You can then substantiate it then in the end with the help of theory. So your basic variables, now it depends actually on the research question, like it could be an episode, it could be characters, it could be the production house, it could even be the OTT channel, it could be viewers. What is the research question informs your variables, I would say. And then, of course, If this is qualitative research, you give a rationale for everything. Yes, please go ahead.
Actually, I wanted to ask that, like, while I also work on research regarding any web series, so like when I'm searching on the internet and trying to get the data about which series are more popular or how many subscribers to Amazon Prime have, the problem is that, on different websites, different kind of data is available. So sometimes I also get confused. So do you?
Then we can do it in 2 stages. Probably do a survey, bring it down to different kinds of audience as per age, gender, etc. Ask them what they watch. That can inform your sampling.
Okay.
That can be another way of looking at it. You can do it as a pilot and then follow it through. It informs your sampling. Then this becomes a part of your methodology chapter. Even pilot goes up because those findings are informing your further research sampling.
Okay, ma'am, we have another question from
Yes.
Ahmed, ma'am. She says that what approach can be used to study stand-up comedy on YouTube?
Okay, so there are various theories for, I came across at least 4 of them. I will not remember all the names right now. So at least 4 or 5 theories there to understand new media audience. Okay, so you could look at ritualistic behavior. There is ritual theory. There are 3. I'll send you the. There's a paper on that. Okay, I'm sorry I can't recall it right now. So stand-up can be looked at. In fact, I had suggested one of my students very lately about of late about using ritual theory, because how does for me, watching stand-up while I'm making breakfast, my phone is there and I'm listening to the jokes. It makes my day. It sets a pace for my day. Okay, so for me, ritual theory makes a lot of sense. Okay, so going back to why you read the newspaper in the morning, there are a lot of reasons, we can't talk about them here. Okay, so why, the go-to responses with my cup of tea, newspaper is there, or somewhere else the newspaper goes along. So why we watch stand-up, one way could be looking at it in terms of is ritual. Other approaches could be socio-psychological for sure, and then you can place it within COVID and how COVID was affecting people and comedy comes to rescue. You can look at that lens. You can look at how people are opening up. It was said that Indians don't have a sense of humor, so how adverse we are to certain jokes, how we are not open to certain jokes. You see those comments. That's another way of looking at it. Once you see shows being put up on YouTube or on Facebook, they come up, or suggested content that comes up on your YouTube and you watching it, I scroll through the comments and then there are all sorts of comments. You can do that research, right? So I think these are the various ways of looking at stand-up. How mature the audience is, when we consume it, why during COVID we consumed it. All of these things can be looked at it. And of course, defining then YouTube in terms of OTT. That's another thing that you choose that content, then starts flashing and then you start watching that content more and more. So OTTization of YouTube or of content. That is another way of looking at it. Did I answer that question?
Thank you so much. There's one more question.
Yes.
Which is the ideal form of the revenue models we're talking about? So which ideal form?
Ideal form of revenue model for OTT? No, I would not say there is any ideal form. From the point of view of the OTT, if I am Netflix or Amazon, business is business, okay? And I want to see how it's going to grow. I don't want advertising to die out. So both work fine. Okay, I can put premium on advertising, charge it from the advertiser, or else I can make content so premium, so good that people pay up for subscriptions. So I don't think there is one versus the other as of now. I mean, this could be very nascent knowledge. I don't know. It could be very initial way of looking at it, but I don't think there is an either or in terms of which business model is the best. They should coexist, I feel, and the market should grow. We all want to be in business, and we want to keep talking about OTT and theorizing about it. Likewise, for OTT platforms, they want to be in business. And suppose another question that was asked was that what if everyone goes for subscription and advertising dies out? So that is another fear. So how will then business grow? Where are the content creators going to go? Where are the copywriters going? Where's the creative team going? So we are looking at there will be a reinventing of the system of production always. Okay, there will be new ways that technology will come up with to we remain in business on top of it. So I don't think there's an either or, and that is a very limiting question. I think the question should be expanded,
Okay, so
in terms of looking at both. Yes.
anyone, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or type in the chat box. Anyone who wants to interact with ma'am?
Nitesh.
Nitesh, please unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, I have this question that over the years we see, mergers and acquisition happening, bundling of things are happening, and I mean, even the digital platforms that are there, they are also indulging into these things. So Facebook, Google, everyone is trying to do this thing, wherein they are trying to, bundle things, they are trying to, merge things. Now, when they become so big, basically it is leading towards oligopoly, right? Now, in this situation, wherein only few are going to dictate entertainment and information to us, is it really beneficial? Because ultimately they are trying to suppress the voices that represent the diversity. They are trying to kill the autonomy part of those small organizations by merging them into their own organization. So is it problematic? Is there a perfect balance for this?
Yeah, I agree that right. Just I think 2-3 weeks back, I saw that if you take Amazon subscription, add this particular, there is Mubi, there is something Hulu, something you can keep adding, and the subscription, just a little marginal increase in your subscription, and you get an extra channel. So they're trying to sort of converge it, sort of merge it. As of now, it seems like there is an explosion of content. This was content we were all waiting for. That's why we've jumped onto it. And it was not happening on Doordarshan, on Star Plus, on anywhere. Okay. And again, that was limiting in terms of how big my subscription is, which all channels I have subscribed to. And on top of that, the moment it starts raining, my connection goes for a toss. Right. So not even raining. If it's cloudy, I can't watch TV that day. So we've jumped onto the other platform. So as of now, in terms of content, it seems to be an explosion. But then if you're seeing that, it's very gritty content, it's very flashy content, it's very vulgar content, or one kind of content, and will it lead to monopoly of content? There will be, like I said, media as a production system is going to reinvent itself. I'm voting for that. I'm routing for that. So there will be new content that keeps coming up. And if a certain content today is talking about the current situation, about my existential crisis today, then whatever changes happen in future, it will talk about that too. That is ever evolving. I mean, if that was the question, was that the question, that how content will become
Yes,
only
ma'am.
one
Yes,
kind?
ma'am.
Yeah. So it will evolve. I mean, we should have faith in that.
Ma'am, there is
system.
another small question added to this. I want your personal opinion on what could be the ideal model, a revenue model, wherein is it only just ads, is it subscription based, or is it a mix of all? What
Yeah.
would you personally think is the best model?
For me as a subscriber,
Yes, ma'am.
for us as a subscriber, it's subscription based. Although, what all should I subscribe for? That's another question. Yeah, but if it's ad free and I get to watch all the episodes of my serial, provided I have the time to do it, I would go for subscription.
Yes, ma'am. Totally.
You're
I'll
doing a
ask.
survey?
No, no, no. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay.
There's another participant who was asking about whether the OTT platform replace television. So she's asking about that.
Sorry, the voice is cracking. Are you? What was it? Ma'am, I have done a paper on OTT platform, eclipsing TV in the future. Do you think OTT will replace TV? Okay. So it's about, like I started with, space versus place. Okay. So you're still watching TV. There's a screen. Now, how will you define TV? How will you define OTT? Okay. So it is a physical television or a screen. Good old George Orwell. Go back to that, right? So we'll all be glued to our screens, he said. So it's a screen that you're glued to. Only where and how you're watching it, that is what we are studying today. And that is what is problematizing today. That is what we are trying to problematize and study today, right? So you're still watching TV. Yes, the old ways of watching TV have reduced. DTH. DTH is becoming not so popular, or it is reinventing itself. We have recently got one Airtel connection for everything, all the gadgets now. Okay, so they've even given us a landline connection free. I don't have to pay for my landline connection. Imagine, I had to hunt for a landline phone. They said, if you have a landline phone, we'll give you a connection free. We got one landline phone. It's there. Okay, not that anyone calls on it. Not that anyone's going to call me on it. Okay, so where you are watching TV has changed. Eclipsing in TV is, yeah, your traditional Doordarshan, all of that. Traditional Star Plus is probably going out slowly, but then they have a tie-up with Disney, so they are not going out of business. You're not going to miss on the content which you watch on TV. It's going to be there on your OTT platforms also. All your Comedy Central shows, everything is there on Amazon. So the content is not going out, but yeah, where you're watching it, how you're watching it, that is definitely going to change. So in that case, I would say a very simple answer would be yes, if you're looking at TV as traditional TV.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So thank you, ma'am, for the insightful description of OTT platforms. We gained a lot and learned new concepts of OTT. OTT platform is actually a very crucial area of research, and the knowledge you shared is beneficial for us and all the participants, I believe, for researching on the content of audiovisual medium. You spoke about avenues of investment in OTT media and online content. The Indian market of OTT will expand to $4 billion by 2025, as you said, and the number of OTT users will be much higher by then. You discussed about ad-based and subscription-based on demand. You talked about the evolution of OTT platforms in India, and we discussed whether OTT platforms are going to penetrate to the rural areas, and we discussed on that also. You showed us the different ways of looking at OTT, and you told us about the users and gratification theory, which can be applied in the online medium, the cultivation theory, the behavioral research, and different subscription models you told us about. And we talked about media conversions. Then you explained how semiotic analysis is supposed to be done when we are researching on OTT platforms, the paradigmatic and sigmatic relationship and all. So, ma'am, thank you so much. And we hope to hear more session of yours so that we get from your knowledge. So thank you, ma'am. Your session was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Very kind. Thank you so much.
Thank Thank you to all the participants being present in the meeting. Thank you. And another thing which I would like to inform all the participants is that the second session we have usually from 2:30. It is not there. Instead of that, we have a foreign speaker who will be speaking from Budapest, and the session will be at 6 p.m. Indian Standard Time. So we will again meet at 6 p.m. in the evening. So be there. We'll be sharing the information, the link and all at that time. In the evening at 6 p.m. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.